Joe Biden, Molly's friend. Thank you very much. Now, I don't know whether you have seats behind you, but if you do, please take the seats. You don't? I see some over here. Yes, we will. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Well, I think we can too. Folks, it's really... Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you, and whomever is chanting. Folks, I'd like to, especially for those of you standing, not make this too long. What I'd like to do is... Folks, I'd like to have a straightforward discussion with you, as straight as I can be, and make it as plain as I can. And I'd like to get right to the heart of the matter. You all know what we and how and what Governor Romney's line of argument is. He says that since we've gotten in office, things have gotten much worse. He says our policies are the problem. Well, as former Senator Pat Moynihan, a good friend of mine, used to say, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. So, folks, I'd like to just talk about the facts for a moment, if I may. I want to show you, and I think you all got a copy of this graph before you came in. I'd like you to take a look at that. It says job creation between December of 2007 and April of 2012. The red lines are the jobs that we lost. The blue lines are when we started adding jobs back to the economy. In the last 6 months of the Bush administration, we lost 3.5 million jobs. As a matter of fact, on that magnificent day on January 20th, and some of you were there, and I see so many, Pat, and so many great old friends that I see out here. And then, by the way, I as you know, I don't want to hurt your reputation, but I really love Keene. I love being back here. It's such a great city. No, it's such a great town. But some of you were there on that bitterly cold day on January the 20th when we were sworn in. Before I lowered my hand that day, after taking the oath, that month we had already lost over 760,000 jobs that month, as by January the 20th. So, ladies and gentlemen, we lost, before we were sworn in, 3.5 million jobs. And before any of our economic policies could be passed and put in effect, we lost another 4,000 jobs. That's what this red line here is. The red line is Bush, the blue line is us. And you can see all these jobs lost and the jobs lost in the first several months of our administration. That's before any of our policies were put in place. And you can see these jobs were lost on the Republican watch as a consequence of a Republican-induced recession that not we, and the President and I, the nation inherited. So once we had not had a single one of our policy initiatives passed yet, and already there were almost 8 million jobs that had been lost. But look what happened once our policies began to be put in place. We signed the Recovery Act. We saved the automobile industry. We gave tax cuts to businesses and homeowners, and things began to change. The loss of jobs began to change. We ended up in positive territory. As a consequence of these actions, you can see things have markedly changed. We climbed out of the god-awful hole this economy was thrown into, been pushed into. And instead of losing jobs, the private sector, as the Senator just said, has added over 4 million new private sector jobs. And for the last 26 months, each and every month. And as you know, we kept pushing. In March of 2010, we gave tax breaks to companies for hiring unemployed workers. In August of 2010, the President signed a law and to a provision to let the states hire and rehire. Over 100,000 educators have been laid off because of state and local budgets had been crunched as a consequence of this recession. In December of 2010, we passed the payroll tax that gave each and every American an average of $1,000 tax cut. $1,000 less was taken out of their pay in payroll taxes. We repassed that not long ago, allowing another $1,500 to go into people's pockets instead of going into taxes. 98% of the American people, they get a pay stub. They pay payroll taxes. So when you cut taxes for people with a payroll tax, 98% of the American people are getting a tax cut. We gave tax breaks to businesses who hired unemployed veterans. It was a fight, but finally our Republican friends agreed. Look at the results. 26 straight months of private sector job growth. More than 4 million private sector jobs. 1 million of those jobs created in the last 6 months. And as was pointed out a moment ago by Molly, manufacturing is coming back to the United States of America. 480,000 new manufacturing jobs in the last year or so. That is the strongest growth in manufacturing since 1990. 1 million jobs saved as a consequence of the auto rescue. And by the way, you hear these guys say, well, if they just did what Ford did, we didn't bail anybody out, everything would be okay. I was with the chairman of the Ford Motor Company. He said privately and publicly, and by the way, they're investing another $16 or $17 billion, Ford is, in the United States, in new factories, plants, and equipment. He said if you had General Motors and Chrysler not been saved, Ford would have gone under. The reason being the supply chain would have dried up. And we added, since they've recovered out of reorganization, 200,000 new decent paying jobs, auto worker jobs where you could raise a family on, live a middle class life on. And just imagine what would have happened had they passed our jobs bill. Every independent outsourcer, every independent expert on the outside said it would have added another 2 million jobs. They refused to let us pass it. Imagine where we would be if the Republicans in Congress hadn't played brinksmanship with our national debt last August, causing us for the first time in our history to have the United States gold standard. The gold standard is our full faith in credit, etched in gold, put in jeopardy. We were downgraded. The economy took a hit. Jobs took a hit. And by the way, if you listen to Speaker Boehner now, what's he saying when he met with the President last week? He said there's going to be another showdown on the debt limit. The reason being they want to change social policy. They can't get it done legislatively, so they're threatening to change policy. Unless we change policy, they're going to not vote to pay our national obligations. Imagine where we'd be if the Tea Party hadn't taken control of the House of Representatives. A group, they're honorable people, but a group set on obstructionism. They have one overwhelming goal: prevent Barack Obama from a second term, with apparently no care of the consequences to the economy. And folks, we have persevered. But more importantly, you and the American people have persevered through all of this. But that doesn't mean a lot of people aren't still hurting. And we're determined to change that. We've made important progress, but there's much more to do. But progress you can measure. Just look at the chart. Progress that cannot be denied. Progress you can see. Progress people know are occurring. But for that man or woman going to bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering whether they're going to have their job tomorrow, or wondering whether or not they're going to be able to stay in their home because their house is underwater through no fault of their own, for that person is still a dire circumstance. And we are absolutely determined. We are absolutely determined that be turned around. So in November, the American people are going to be faced with a stark choice as to who is best prepared to lead this nation for the next 4 years. I think the choice can be simplified. And obviously I'm prejudiced, but I'll try to be as straightforward as I can on this. I think they're going to have a simple, stark choice. Are we going to continue to move forward with the initiatives and the type of approach we have taken, or are they going to move back? It's really that simple. The good news is the choice has never been more clear for the people of New Hampshire and the people of the United States of America. And that's because Governor Romney and this new Republican Party, they aren't hiding the ball. They're not pretending. You listen to those, whatever, 2, 5, 10, 20 debates they had. It's hard to believe the things they said. No, I mean, I'm not joking. I mean, weren't even your Republican friends, weren't some of them surprised? We're debating about whether or not a woman has a right to contraception, to purchase. I mean, these things are, this is talk about going back to the future. But look, Governor Romney's telling you exactly what he would do, exactly what he believes. Governor Romney says he wants to go back to the good old days on Wall Street, I might add, when the economy crashed in 2008. He wants to get rid of the common sense reforms that were put in effect in 2010 to allow Wall Street to serve its function as the single greatest allocator of capital in the history of the world. He says Wall Street should have fewer regulations, like the good old days. Look, in spite of the deficit we inherited from the last administration, large part is a consequence of 2 unfunded wars, an unfunded prescription drug plan, and a $1 trillion tax plan, not a penny of which was paid for. And that tax plan, by the way, giving people making over $1 million $800 billion in tax cuts. And he wants to double down on it for the next 10 years. In addition to that, he's proposing that there be another, and I'm not making this up, Romney's proposing another $1 trillion new tax cut, which will mean for people making a minimum of $1 million, they will get another $250,000 a year on average tax cut, on top of the Bush tax cut. To paraphrase President Clinton, who you all know and love, he wants to not only go back to the last administration economic policy, he wants to do it on steroids. Folks, the governor's philosophy seems to be, whatever the last administration does, let's do it and do more. Literally, think of anything new he has suggested that deviates from the policies that got us into this hole, except more of the same. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the guys that ran us into the ditch. And they began to sound a little like the horse that just won the Derby and the Preakness. I'll have another. Except the horse is a real winner. Governor Romney's prescription of trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the very wealthy, eliminating rational Wall Street regulation, and making the middle class pay for it, is put forward as a new idea. He's arguing this is a new idea. Folks, like something we haven't seen before. We've seen this movie before, and we know it doesn't end very well. Let me tell you what independent experts have said about Romney's economic plans. They say his tax cuts alone will cost $5 trillion over the next 10 years. And they're talking about the deficit that we inherited by and large, and the recession that forced us to continue to increase it. So that's going to force the governor, if he sticks with this $5 trillion tax cut, it's going to force him to do 2 things. It's going to balloon the deficit, and it's going to require draconian cuts. It will cost trillions of dollars to cut out of programs that the most vulnerable Americans depend upon, and the initiatives that have always grown the American economy. Investment in research and innovation, Infrastructure, road, bridges, locks, dams, the things that provide for productivity, keep the economy moving, as well as education. We rank 16th in the world in the percent of population we graduate from college. How in the Lord's name can we lead the world in the 21st century with this rank 16th in the world? And folks, it'll take us back to a world where nothing is secure about retirement, where Medicare, as we know it, will no longer exist, replaced by a voucher plan, where Social Security is cut and capped for the next generation of retirees. That's what he calls for. It's called cut and cap. Anybody 50 years or under, they're going to cut and cap what you can get, which means you're going to get a lot less than you thought you were paying for. And where deep cuts in Medicare will push Americans out of nursing homes. 75% of the people in nursing homes are women who've lost their husbands, who couldn't be there but for this Medicare. We're going to cut it by close to 40%. Ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, I think our philosophies can be summarized in two ways. Republicans believe, the new Republicans, this is not your father's Republican Party. These new Republicans, they believe in a government where there are no rules for the big guys, no risks for the powerful, and no accountability when they fail. We have a very different approach. What I'd call a basic American common sense approach, an American idea. The idea is that when everyone is in a deal, when everybody is in a deal, the country benefits. The idea that when everybody deserves a fair shot, a fair shake, and everyone should play by the same rules, and everyone should be held accountable. Everyone should be held accountable. An idea that says when the middle class does well, America does well. Everybody does well. Folks, not just the middle class. When the middle class does well, the poor have a way up, and the wealthy do incredibly well in a healthy economy. But Governor Romney thinks he has a trump card that he plays as to why he should be president, whether or not you agree with his economic philosophy. He says he's better qualified to be president and commander-in-chief because of his business experience. That's why he should be. Well, it's not an irrational argument but depending on the business and your success in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the crux of his rationale. He's not out there, if you notice, talking about he's better qualified to handle the foreign policy or national security. He's talking about he's better qualified to be president because of his business experience. So look, he raised it. So let's take a look at his business experience as straightforwardly and as fairly as can be done. Obviously, I'm going to be looking at it, and the folks who are going to watch this on television and say, well, obviously Biden's a Democrat. He's going to not be fair about it. Let me try to be as fair as I can about it and take a close look. You hear all these stories about his partners buying companies, and I won't go to Ampad and other companies, where they load up with tremendous amount of debt. The companies go under, everybody loses their job, the community is devastated, but they make money. They make money even when a company goes bankrupt, when workers lose their jobs, when pensions are wiped out. Look, folks, the fact of the matter is, when they succeed and the company succeeds, they make money. When the company they get involved with fails, they still make money, a lot of money. And here's the dirty little secret. When the companies fail, it costs every taxpayer money. It costs taxpayers money in the unemployment insurance that we all pay for that person who's unemployed. It costs other businesses money because we have a national pension fund where other companies pay into. It's called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. So when a company goes broke and you lose your pension, there is this fail-safe where at least some of the pension you're entitled to can be made good on. So somebody pays for this. Somebody pays for this. Not Romney as investors. Somebody said. Now, some of Romney's defenders, they say, and it's legitimate, that it's not fair to criticize Governor Romney for the work he did in the private sector. That's true. They say it wasn't Romney's job or Bain Capital's job to create jobs. Absolutely true. They say it's the job of these private equity companies to create wealth for his investors. That when you provide what private equity firms are supposed to do is make wealth for their investors. Exactly. Exactly. That's their job. It's legitimate. It's legitimate. But folks, making money regardless of the consequences for the workers, the companies they acquire, or the communities that get wasted is another question. Folks, making money for your investors, which Romney did very well, is not the president's job. The president has a different job. So when Romney says we're bashing private capital, that's not true. The guy they quote now is saying that we shouldn't be criticizing Romney. When I made this same talk a couple weeks ago and Morning Joe said Biden's right. Biden's right. I'm not criticizing private equity firms, but I'm suggesting that people who run them, the same quality and objective of running a private equity firm is not what qualifies you to be president. When you're president, your job is to see to it that companies can make a profit, but not maximize profit at everyone's expense. Your job is to think about the workers who get laid off and what you can do to retrain them and get them rehired. Your job is to think about communities, how they can get back up on their feet, get a new start, creating new businesses. Your job is to try to set an equitable tax system so that everyone gets a fair shake. Your job is to have a tax system. Your job as president is to have a tax system that rewards entrepreneurs and investors who invest in science and technology. Your job as president is to promote the common good. That doesn't mean the private equity guys are bad guys. They're not. But that no more qualifies you to be president than being a plumber. It doesn't, and by the way, there are a lot of awful smart plumbers. All kidding aside, it's not the same job requirement. So it's totally legitimate for the president to point this out. To quote President Obama, so if your main argument, this is quoting the president, he said this yesterday, he said, so if your main argument for how to grow the economy is, quote, I know how to make a lot of money for investors, then you're missing the point of the job of president. Folks, our focus, this is the other thing I want to hit directly. Our focus in the middle class, and some of you have known me for most of my career, what have I always talked about? The middle class. Not because I'm middle class Joe, they're trying to make me, I do very well. You pay me a lot of money. You pay me a lot of money, but I was raised as a middle class kid. The fact that I don't have a savings account, don't own any stocks or bonds or anything, doesn't mean I put everything I have in my house because I thought that would eliminate conflicts of interest. So I just kept buying up houses, my house, the one I live in, and I have a beautiful home. I don't live like I did when I was growing up. I have a beautiful home. And you pay me a lot of money. But I remember. And ladies and gentlemen, I find it fascinating that when we raise the middle class as the objective, we're told by the other team that this is a class argument. We're engaging in class warfare. Ladies and gentlemen, our focus in the middle class is not a class argument, nor is it a political argument. Our focus in the middle class is a reflection of the fundamental economic story of the journey of the history of this country. That's what built this country. That's not some soppish thing. This is what happened. This is why we're strong. As I said earlier, when the middle class does well, everybody does well. There's no period when the middle class does well that not everybody does better than they otherwise would. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who's willing to work hard and willing to be held accountable should have an even chance, an even opportunity to make a living. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't even touched on Romney's foreign policy, where he says, for example, that Russia is, quote, our number one geopolitical foe. Where he says we should be keeping thousands of troops in Iraq. Where he criticizes us for setting a date to turn over responsibility in Afghanistan to the Afghanis so we can come home. I haven't even touched on Romney's social policy either. One that says a woman should no longer get to make her own decisions about her body and her health. One that says it's okay for insurance companies to charge women more for health insurance than men, to count pregnancy as a pre-existing condition. I know this sounds like fiction. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Republican Party's attempt to unravel the bipartisan consensus on something that I wrote and I'm proudest of in my whole career, the Violence Against Women Act. The Violence Against Women Act. The Violence Against Women Act has become part of our popular culture. Businesses, everybody has embraced the notion that a woman has a right to be free of violence and intimidation on the street, in her own home, wherever it is. And these guys in the House just voted down our version, the continuation of this existing Violence Against Women Act. And they cut out big chunks. Folks, this is not your father's Republican Party. And what Romney's talking about, all these things, well, I'll be back a lot. I'll have plenty of time to discuss his foreign policy and plenty of time to discuss his social policy. But ladies and gentlemen, let me make one clear thing absolutely clear to all of you. We will not go back to the 50s in social policy, to the Cold War in our foreign policy, and to the policies of the last administration on our economic policy. We will not do it their way again. We intend to move forward. We intend to rebuild the middle class. We mean it. For as the President said in his last address to the Congress, he said, there is a basic American promise that if you work hard, you could do well enough to raise a family, own your own home, put your kids to college, and put away a little money for retirement. The President went on to say, the defining issue of our time is how we keep that promise. That's why we're running. Folks, many of you know me too well. You know I'm an optimist. You think it's genetic with me. I am not an optimist, as my grandpa would say. Well, I love this when you pick up the national press and they refer to Biden as the White House optimist, like as my grandpa would say, I'm the guy who just fell off the turnip truck yesterday. I've been there longer than all of them. I'm an optimist because I know you. I'm an optimist because I understand this country. I'm an optimist because the American people, given a half a chance, have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. But they need a chance. They need an even playing field. They need an opportunity. And ladies and gentlemen, the deck has been stacked on them. And we're unstacking it. Folks, you know firsthand. You know when you give people a chance what it means. You've seen it right here in New Hampshire, right here in Keene. You've watched what's happened when you give people an opportunity. You watch what's happened when you create the environment for people to take advantage of new technologies. When you have a nurturing environment where you invite companies and people who have new ideas to come in. You've seen it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, The whole country's ready. The whole country's ready. All we have to do is level the playing field. Not punish anybody wealthy. Ladies and gentlemen, I get a kick out of it, and I'll conclude with this. You know, I'm, as I said, you know, you're going to read about me, I'm middle-class Joe. Like I said, like I'm the kid from Scranton who just climbed out of a coal mine with a lunch bucket in my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, what I find and I resent is those people that talk about we are engaged in wealth envy and class warfare. They don't understand that in your house and mine, middle-class neighborhoods, we were raised by people who not only wanted to live in a decent neighborhood, be able to own their home and not rent, etc. They also had dreams for us. They dreamed that their kid could start a business someday. Maybe be the new Steve Jobs. Maybe be the new multimillionaire or billionaire. Maybe be the woman or man who helped find the cure for cancer. Maybe be president someday. In my household, as middle class as we were, my mother and father never doubted that I could be president of the United States or vice president of the United States. They never doubted my brother could do his own business and make money and live an even better life. They never doubted my sister had the ability to be an officer in a corporation. They never doubted. These guys don't understand us. They think somehow we don't dream like they do. But ladies and gentlemen, for our dreams to realize, you have to have a platform, a middle-class platform, where you can live a decent life first. That's what this race is all about. That's what this is going to be in stark relief all about. And ladies and gentlemen, I have faith in the people of New Hampshire. I have faith in the people of the United States of America. And I have faith in you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will win because we happen to be right on this subject. Thank you all very much, and may God bless our troops. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm that way.